The Exxon Valdez spill was one absolutely for the record books. It was one that required stamina, intestinal fortitude, and diplomacy as you could never imagine needing before. It was a tremendous learning opportunity for international bird rescue.
It was one of those crystal clear days, and we flew right over the ship, and you could see the oil around it. It looked like it was calm water in Prince William Sound, beautiful, blue, and then around the ship there was this black, looked like a little lake. But I thought in my mind, oh, they'll just clean that up. And, I just thought that. And then we landed in Valdez and started the process of getting our supplies together and figuring out what we were going to do, knowing we'd probably get birds, but we had no idea what to expect. I think almost 2 to 3 days later when this massive storm hit, and we were, I think the Exxon Valdez was something like 12 miles from the Valdez terminal, and we could smell the oil.
We all mobilized in Valdez, and then as the oil moved, we had to start setting up preparedness and rehabilitation facilities in areas in front of the spill in the direction it was going.
We developed a fleet of capture boats. We've never done anything like this before. And we learned some great things here where we could go out, capture the birds, stabilize them, and ship them back in. We had ongoing shipment. And there were only a few days when it was delayed because of the weather. Most of the time, these boats, some of the boats, we had to transport boats that would take a 3-hour ride one way just to pick up birds and bring them back in. The oil was about 3 feet deep, going over my boots. And I think I wrote in one of my things recently, I remember a loon calling, and I saw it, and I tried to get through it through the oil, and it sunk under the oil.
3 feet of oil.
Yeah, it was bad. I remember driving them back and having to keep them. They got too warm, and we had to keep them cool, and they were covered in oil, and they were screaming. And I remember, I used to not be able to talk about this. I can do it now. Seeing them, that happening to them, and I knew that they were burning internally from the fumes, and also their babies were all dead, and they were trying to groom themselves and screaming at the same time. And if you ever heard an otter scream, it's kind of blood-curdling.
It was in a community college building, a long building with a hall down the center and then rooms on the sides, and there were wildlife admin, there were the otters down the hall, and we could hear the cries of distress of particularly the young otters many hours during the day. Birds were up at the other end of the building, and our wash area and our animal carriers where the oiled birds were, everything was in that basically in that one building at that point. It was chaotic, certainly, and it always seems chaotic when you first get to a spill that, again, you don't understand the system, but there were lots of people moving around trying to get a system in place to respond to what at that time was the largest spill that had ever occurred in the United States, certainly, and again in a very remote, pristine area where there wasn't a lot of infrastructure for spill response.
It's exciting work, but it's very sad work when you're dealing with animals in distress. Sometimes there are moments when you have to find a quiet place and let it out. And having your team members around you can help you find your feet again.
Because of the Exxon Valdez alone, the Oil Pollution Act of 1990 was created. Now, Exxon Valdez happened in March of '89, so we spent 6 months there. And then in sometime in 1990, the Oil Pollution Act was passed, and it was national. And what it said to the oil industry and anybody else who uses large amounts of petroleum, could be like utility companies, things like that they had to have contingency plans, and they had to be proven. They couldn't just say, oh, we're going to call somebody. People had to be on contract. They had to have proven ability to respond to oil spills, wildlife, everything.
The thing that we learned, to me, that's the most important from the spill, is this is the first spill that we really started doing thorough pre-wash examinations, including taking a small amount of blood and looking at packed cell volumes. And that really changed what we've done ever since, and has had the probably the biggest impact. The wash process is very physically demanding for birds because they're being held and they're being washed, even by people who are trying to do it as gently and as quickly as possible. It takes a lot of energy because those birds think that that they need to get away, that they need to escape, and so they're struggling constantly. Even if they don't look like they're moving, they're struggling internally to try and get away, and it uses up a lot of energy. And so Exxon, we started evaluating them much more thoroughly. We started taking blood, and we started being able to determine which birds actually could make it through the wash, and it immediately had an impact on how many birds survived.
We were tenacious, we did our best, we held our heads high, and we represented ourselves individually and International Bird Rescue as a whole very, very well, in my opinion, and I am very proud to have been a part of it all.